Golden State Media Concepts bring you Book Review Podcast, a haven for bookworms of all ages and the widest genres, from mystery to memoirs, romance to comedy, fantasy to sci-fi. If you love to read, this is a podcast for you. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Book Review Podcast.
Good morning and welcome to the GSMC Book Review Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Sarah, and I hope you are having a wonderful day so far. It's Friday, and I know I normally post these on Thursday, but it's been a bit of a crazy week, and so I apologize for my lateness. But we are going to get right to this episode, and I have an author interview for you today, author Jeri Bronson. Her debut novel just came out on Wednesday of this week, March 21st. So brand new novel. It's called Seeking Perfect, and it is a young adult romance. Let me read you the description of that book, and then we'll talk a little bit more about it before we turn to that interview. So the description of Seeking Perfect by Jeri Bronson. Jessie learned early not to trust a soul, but what if he was her soulmate? Senior year of high school should be about friendship, boyfriends, and graduation. But for 17-year-old Jessie Barnes, it's about escaping the shame of life with an alcoholic mother. Jessie's goals are clear. Keep a roof over her head, avoid the revolving door of leering men her mother brings home, graduate from high school, and do everything possible to keep her home life secret. Friends, boyfriends, not an option. Who would understand? Then perfect, popular Derek Aames sits with Jessie at lunch. How can she discourage him? How can she keep him from intruding on her life and discovering her secret? And most of all, how can she keep him out of her heart? Will his persistence finally break down her walls or just break her? So that is the description of Seeking Perfect by Jeri Bronson. It is a young adult romance. And as I was reading this book, I realized that while I read a lot of young adult, I don't think I've read a young adult romance since I was a young adult. And that's been, let's just say, a day or two. I read a lot of young adult fantasy, it turns out. So this was a genre that I haven't read in a long time, and it was kind of fun to shake it up a little bit and read a genre that I haven't been reading so much lately. Jessie as a character is, as you can tell from the description, very guarded, very her main goal in life is just to stay under the radar. She's just trying to get through high school and get out of the life that she currently has. She's got 6 months left to go, and her goal is just to graduate, get into college, and get away. And then this boy disrupts her life, as boys sometimes do. And it's, you might look at this and think, oh, okay, boy rescues girl, etc. But it's really about relationships. This book is a lot about relationships. Jessie's relationship with her mother is not healthy. She has a part-time job at a bookstore, and the owner of that bookstore, Charlotte, really is a mother figure to Jessie. So she's got a relationship with Charlotte and her family that's not exactly complicated. It's very loving, very warm. It gives her some stability in her life, but it's difficult for Jessie. It's complicated from Jessie's side because she doesn't really know how to be in relationship. So this book really is about Jessie learning how to be in relationship with other people, how to trust other people. And Derek is kind of the catalyst for that, and they really help each other in figuring some stuff out. So it's a quick read. It is a very sweet novel, and I think that we will let Jeri talk about it now since she is the author and she knows more about it. But the book is Seeking Perfect by Jeri Bronson, so let's turn now to that interview with Jeri. Hi, Jeri. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. So we are here to talk about your book, Seeking Perfect. But before we get to the book, I would love for my listeners to get to know you a little bit. So if you could just share a little something about yourself, that would be great.
Well, I grew up in Orange County, California, and I have a daughter and a son. My daughter's 21. My son is almost 16. I'm married to a deputy coroner, so that adds a lot of fun for me. I also work part-time as a substitute high school teacher, which really helps with the writing process and listening to what kids say today.
Yes, absolutely. A deputy coroner. Wow, I have so many questions, none of which are really appropriate to the podcast, but that sounds really interesting. So talk a little bit about your book, Seeking Perfect.
Seeking Perfect is a book that, every writer has a book of their heart that they say. And this one just kind of took over my life. And it got to the point where everybody grows up in a different way and has no choice over their childhood. And as I've moved through this world and seen the things I've seen, I felt that this story needed to be told so that they could see that people may not have control over their lives, but they do to a certain extent. So I wanted to show that even though young adults may feel they have no decision-making power, that they do.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So then, in light of that, talk a little bit about the main character, Jessie.
Jessie, Jessie's complex. She's a very strong girl, but she's scared and she's vulnerable, and she doesn't think highly of herself, or she doesn't think other people will think highly of her because of her circumstances. So she kind of just keeps moving forward, head down, keeps moving forward. But every once in a while she's trying to look over her shoulder, and when she looks over her shoulder and someone's actually looking back at her, it definitely throws her for a loop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she really does just try to, her main phrase, almost her mantra, is staying under the radar. And so for, I guess, a little background for people, she does come from a household of, her father is not around, her mother is an alcoholic and tends to be definitely verbally abusive, often physically abusive. So she's just trying to get through her senior year of high school and make it to college so she can leave that situation. So what was your inspiration for Jessie as a character?
Well, as writers, like we said, we write what we know. But I have a unique opportunity that being in a school system and seeing various things and going to different schools that I do, you hear things and you see things. And you see things on the news constantly. So inspiration is all around me all the time. And sometimes I just feel like they don't get their story told in a way. And I thought that this was a great way to finally have a story that's coming from an emotional aspect from it, to understand the inner workings of a person growing up in a home with an alcoholic. And so that's where Jessie kind of was born. She needed to have her voice heard, and so I started plugging along, writing this back in 2007. I worked full-time for many years, obviously, and then in 2007, when the recession hit, I got laid off, and I thought, you know what? My husband was always so supportive of all my little ramblings and stuff, and he bought me my first laptop, and he said, you know what? Just go write your story. So that's what I did, and it just came forth. And I wasn't a writer, so I had to learn about how to tell Jessie's story in a way about crafting her and her emotional journey, and it took a lot of years and a lot of revisions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So are there any autobiographical elements in the story, the setting, the characters, anything like that?
Yeah, of course there is. There's always, every writer leaves a little piece of themselves in all of their books. But I do have to say, as a fun aside, I did use my own high school. as the setting.
Okay.
just because I loved the layout of it, and it worked for me.
Mm-hmm.
So that was fun because like I said, it just kind of worked for me.
I'm going to jump in here with our first break of the podcast. I hope you're enjoying the interview with author Jeri Bronson. I think you can really tell how passionate she is about the students that she works with. I think she put a lot of that experience into writing this novel, really wanting to tell stories of this age group that maybe don't often get told, really looking at those students who do want to stay under the radar, but who need those relationships in their life. So we will be back with more of the interview with author Jeri Bronson, but first we do have to take that first break. So stay tuned. You're listening to the GSMC Book Review Podcast, and I will be right back.
Still on the search of that one true love? On the limbo in this crazy world of dating, marriage, relationships? Well, listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Relationship Podcast, your one-stop podcast for everything about relationships.
Welcome back to the GSMC Book Review Podcast. I am speaking today with Jeri Bronson about her debut novel, Seeking Perfect, and let's get right back to that interview. Have your children read the book? What do they think?
My son is definitely not a reader. My daughter, she read it in its very first early drafts, so she liked it, and she's a journalism major, so she's kind of a writer of that respect too. So she liked it initially too. So, but it's gone through so many revisions over time that, I think if she read it now, it'd probably be definitely a different book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but kind of fun to see that whole process from the beginning from where it started to where it ended up. So what is next? Are you working on anything right now?
Actually, I have I'm trying to write in another genre, and I actually have several suspense novels that I'm working on editing right now, and I did start another young adult as well. So my suspense novels are kind of taking a lead for me right now, and I'm having a ton of fun with those. And I'm hoping to get something out soon.
Yeah, so suspense in terms of like mystery, or what kind of thriller? What kind of suspense are you writing?
Kind of like suspense with some romantic elements to it, but it's kind of like leans more towards like a thriller aspect. So, being married to who I'm being married to, I can I can lend a lot of realism to my details.
You do not have to go far for research.
No, I don't. So it has, it's I'm having this first suspense is kind of set in England, and this graduate student is being plagued with some nightmares, and she has to, save herself and save somebody else.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Okay. That's always good when you have to, when there's that much at stake. So
yeah,
you said that when you started writing Seeking Perfect, you weren't a writer. So was this something that you came to later in life, or had you always in the back of your head kind of wanted to write? How did that process work?
Honestly, I never thought I could be a writer. It never really entered my mind that I could do it. I was kind of one of these people that, I had to live for today and then worry about what happened for tomorrow. So when 2007 hit, writing has always kind of been an outlet for me. So you will find all kinds of journals all over my house with just various notes. It's definitely a way for me to process things that go on in my world. So 2007, I guess I didn't, I wrote the story, and I wrote it not thinking of its future. until one day when I've had a friend who read it, and she's like, this needs to be told. And then that's when I said, you know what, I can do this. And I just started working the craft and learning everything I could learn about actually writing a novel and the intricacies and points of view and dialogue tags and everything that went into this. And I thought, you know what, I can do this.
Yeah.
So I said, you know what, I'm going to be a writer.
Awesome.
So I came to it a little later in life.
Mm-hmm. That's okay. Would you have advice then for other people who would like to write?
I think the best advice I could give is find your tribe. There's a writer tribe out there for everybody, and I think that's what really pushed me over the edge. Is once I joined Romance Writers of America, when you find like-minded people that understand the voices in your head, then you feel connected, you feel empowered. And, writing is a solitary experience. Most of us are very much introverts. So, it's hard to go out there and find that writing tribe, but it definitely makes the difference. And also, I think reading outside of your comfort level, if you like a certain genre, like say you only like to read in young adult, if you try reading something else, it just gives you an opportunity to explore different voices and different styles, and I think that's been the biggest help for me is finding a tribe and definitely reading outside of what I normally like to read.
Yeah, well, and finding a tribe, I would imagine, is a little bit easier in this age of the internet because you don't have to have a solidly physical tribe. It can be an online tribe.
Absolutely. I belong to a couple different ones online, and I have just met so many amazing, encouraging people, and it's just been the best experience of my life.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So in terms of reading, you were just talking about reading outside your comfort zone, but when you have the opportunity to read, who are your favorite authors?
I love Stephen King. I mean, he's just amazing. His words are they just transport you. They are emotional. They're gripping. Reading him is exciting for me overall, just like from a learning standpoint too, and from I just like being scared.
I'm the opposite. I tend to read his non-horror works.
Yeah, no, it's great stuff. But recently, I have discovered Regency romances, and I have learned so much about character development and really delving into those emotions that sometimes people don't want to really confront. And it's been exciting just learning from some amazing authors like Christy Caldwell and Tessa Dare. I've super been enjoying those books lately. So, yeah, right now I'm kind of in this historical period in my life, so those are the ones I've been enjoying recently.
For people who are listening who aren't familiar with the term Regency romance, can you explain what period that relates to?
The Regency is in the early 1800s. So if you think of Pride and Prejudice, that movie, it's that time period.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah, Tessa Dare's name keeps coming up over and over in various conversations, and I keep seeing her name pop up. I haven't read her, so I need to put her on my to-be-read list. Oh,
absolutely, yeah. She is a sweetheart, and her writing is witty and sharp and emotionally riveting. Her books are just amazing.
Thank you. I actually wanted to go back to Seeking Perfect because I wanted to talk a little bit more about some of the relationships. So, as I mentioned, Jessie does not have a good relationship with her mother, but she does have a good relationship with her boss. She works at a bookstore, Charlotte. So can you talk a little bit about that relationship and the importance it has in the story?
Well, that relationship was something that gave Jessie some kind of touchstone to, for lack of a better word, normalcy, to allow herself to be cared about when she herself doesn't ever feel that she's worthy of being cared about. So it was a constant struggle for Jessie to see that that Charlotte cared about her, and I wanted to put that relationship in there so that people can see that sometimes you have resources at your disposal that you don't even realize you have, and that the hardest thing about it is reaching out to those resources, but in the end, it's going to be beneficial to you to do that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, jumping in here with our second break of the podcast. And as I mentioned before we went to our first break, this book really is about relationships. And so you just heard Jeri talking about Jessie's relationship with Charlotte. And when we come back, we'll be talking a little bit more about Jessie's relationship with Derek. So stay tuned. You're listening to the GSMC Book Review Podcast, and I will be right back.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back to the GSMC Book Review Podcast. As you know, we are speaking today with author Jeri Bronson about her debut novel, Seeking Perfect. So let's go ahead and get to that conclusion of the interview with Jeri. And then I also wanted to ask about the character of Derek, who takes an interest in Jessie. He's the same age as her. And I think oftentimes adults tend to think of teenage boys in a certain light. And Derek is sensitive and he's concerned about Jessie. So talk about Derek's role and how you kind of developed his character, what your thoughts were for his role in Jessie's life. Did you base him on anyone?
Well, I didn't really base him on anyone per se. As for a lack of a better term, I kind of Frankensteined him. So I kind of pieced him from different people in my life, different things. But I kind of wanted Derek to act as a mirror in a way so that Jessie could see her reflection through somebody's eyes differently. And it's really different. Boys are, teenage boys are portrayed in a certain way, but I own a teenage boy, so he's different as well than what a typical teenage boy would be considered. And like I said, being in the school systems that I am, teenage boys are thoughtful, and I think even today they are more thoughtful, they are more dynamic in their thinking process, and I just wanted him to give Jessie a different voice in her head for a change, a peer. So that's kind of why he was there. He was there to help change her thought pattern, to show that she is worthy, and who doesn't like a good guy in a story.
Right. I just appreciated him because, we so often think of teenage boys as whether it's arrogant or sullen or, there's all these stereotypes, and he is, oh my gosh, he's an actual human with emotions, and, so I just appreciated that you were giving a different perspective on teenage boys than we often encounter in the world. Where can people find you? First of all, where can people get the book, and where can people find you on the internet?
Well, the book will be released on March 21st, and it'll be available on Amazon as an ebook, and then eventually it'll come out in print as well on Amazon. And you can find me on Facebook under Jeri Bronson, author, and on Twitter at Jeri Bronson. I do have a website that is kind of sparse, but it's there under jeribronson.com. So technology's not my superpower, but I'm working on it.
Good. Okay. So are you on... Do you have, I know this is your debut novel, so you might not have all of these things. Can people find you on, like, do you have an Amazon author page? Are you on Goodreads? Any of those types of places?
Oh, yes. I do have a Goodreads author page. Thank you for asking. And I do have an author page on Amazon as well.
Okay. Perfect. So people can go and give you wonderful, wonderful reviews on those author pages, which is always nice.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
So is there anything else that you would like for people to know about you or your book or writing, anything that we haven't covered that you would wanted to talk about?
I think I do love chocolate.
Oh, me too. Let's hang out and eat chocolate.
Yes. Yeah, I'm all about chocolate. Chocolate's good. And I think that when you're trying to be a writer, what works for me is like I have to be sometimes outside in the world. Walking is a beautiful release, and I actually get so many ideas when I'm walking, sometimes a little careless because I'll walk in the street and not pay attention. But yeah, I very much enjoy walking and coming up with my ideas that way. And I'm looking forward to my suspense novels because so I think there's like two coins to me. My young adult allows me to explore different emotions at a different level than what's typical because those are young emotions at the time, and they're just learning and growing and trying to figure out this world. They're not adults, but they're not kids. So it's definitely a difficult time. So I think everybody still needs to sometimes explore those emotions, but with my suspense, that's the exciting part. That's the part where you get to be creative and get to be different characters, even the bad characters. And like I said, I'm lucky enough to have a good first-person research source. And so, yeah, I'm hoping that, I will get to release those suspense novels soon, too.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, I want to thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Your book is releasing this week, so happy book birthday week. Are you doing anything fun to celebrate?
I wish. I'm actually working, but I will enjoy a piece of celebratory carrot cake, which I love. So.
As long as there's something to mark the day.
That there will be some celebratory cake somewhere.
Excellent. Celebratory cake is the best. Again, thank you so much for joining me. And for the book is Seeking Perfect, and then it comes out on March 21st. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarah.
Once again, and as always, I want to thank my guest, author Jeri Bronson, who joined me today to speak about her debut novel, Seeking Perfect. As I said, that book came out on Wednesday, March 21st, so it is available on Amazon as an ebook. It will be eventually out as a hard copy, but right now it's in an ebook form, so you definitely want to go out and check that book out. Thank you so much to Jeri for taking the time to speak with me. Thank you, as always, for taking the time to tune in and listen to the podcast. I love my listeners, and I really appreciate all of you. As a reminder, don't forget that we still have giveaways going on. We have three books from three authors that we're giving away. So The Devil's Poetry by Louise Cole, Instrument of the Devil by Debbie Burke. Totally coincidental that we have two books right now with devil in the title. And Bridge Daughter by Jim Nelson. All you have to do is go on social media, Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, and retweet, share, or comment on one of those posts, and you'll be entered into the giveaway for those books. The time for the giveaway is coming to a close, so if you want a copy of one of those books, please go on social media and share, retweet, or comment. Thank you. Next week, if you will join me on Tuesday, I have author Jim Heskett coming to the podcast to talk about his book, Nail Gun Messiah. It is a thriller, so tune in for that. If you're anything like me, you're already intrigued just by the name. Nailgun Messiah, pretty much I was interested just from the title. I wanted to find out what the heck was going on with that book. So join me on Tuesday as I speak with author Jim Heskett. In the meantime, you can find all of our podcasts at www.gsmcpodcast.com. You can download those podcasts on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play, any app that you use for your podcast. Wherever you go to get podcasts, you can find us. Just type GSMC into the search bar. And you can follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, and Instagram. We also have a blog, www.gsmcbookreview.blogspot.com. All of these links are in the show description of this show, so you can find us easily. Thank you so much for joining me. Please join me again next week when I have author Jim Heskett on Tuesday and author Priscilla Oliveira on Thursday. In the meantime, get out there, have a great weekend, and get lost in a good book. Thank you.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Book Review Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.